Welcome to We Are Not Scientists, the podcast brought to you by three space and science enthusiasts, zooming in from our three locations around planet Earth. As always, dialing everyone in from grid location approximately TQ310754, it's me, Simon, and hopefully, beaming in from mission control in Deepest Darkest Devon, we have our commander, LP. Are you there, LP?
Hello, Simon. Yes, I am here. I can hear you loud and clear.
Lovely, lovely. And again, from her top secret underground bunker somewhere under the Canadian Arctic, surrounded by her family of servers, is Christelle. Are you there, Christelle?
I am. Hi, guys.
Brilliant, brilliant. We're all here. Fantastic stuff. Okay, LP, as commander, you get to choose this week's topic of discussion. What will it be?
Well, this week, Simon, I thought we would go to the moon.
So what is a moon? What's the definition of a moon?
What's the definition of a moon? Ultimately, Simon, a moon is a body that orbits a planet or a dwarf planet. So where you have a planet orbits a sun or a star, and then a moon will orbit some other object that is orbiting that star. I believe within the sort of the standard 6 planet system that we have here in our own solar system, where those planets have moons. I mean, there are 8 planets, but there are 2 that don't have moons. But I think there's over 200 moons that we've discovered so far. So they are quite ubiquitous in our solar system. There are some moons that are huge. I believe it's Ganymede, the biggest moon in the solar system, is actually bigger than Mercury. So, but you might want to fact check that one for me, because I've just thought of that. But I know it's pretty colossal. But in reference, our moon is pretty big. It's the 5th largest moon in the solar system. And the 2nd most dense as well. So it's a pretty hefty chunk of rock, considering it's not a planet in its own right.
Well, Ganymede is 2,634.1 kilometers. Io would be your next at 1.8216 kilometers. So yeah, it's Callisto at 2.4103. So yeah, Ganymede, massive.
Okay, so let's go to our moon. First question, as always, I'd like to know, how was it formed? How was our moon formed, LP?
No one's quite sure, Simon, to be honest. But the most popular hypothesis, based on the moon rocks that the Apollo astronauts brought back and various other scientific studies, is that it was formed during a massive collision between a Mars-sized object and a proto-Earth. This was about 4.5 billion years, maybe 50, 60 million years after the actual original formation of the solar system. This large object hit Earth, and then the massive spewing lava and accretion disk that was thrown out from the Earth being pretty much split into, kind of formed one glob, formed the moon, and the rest of it all kind of settled back down on Earth, and then we ended up with a Earth-Moon system that we see today.
There are some really good YouTube videos that people have created, sort of like an example of what that would look like. Just incredible, like this massive thing flying through space and just breaks this huge chunk of Earth off, and there's like plasma floating around space and all kind of forming again. There's some really, really cool videos out there.
Apart from cheese, what is it made of?
It's like most objects in the inner solar system. It's made of rock and iron. I think it has like a quite iron heavy core. Then it has like a rocky mantle, and then a rocky crust. I think the core and everything is all solidified solid, so it's not like Earth. We don't believe there's any active geology going on, and most of the features that you see on the moon were actually caused by asteroid collisions, not internal geology.
Well, I heard that the moon's actually hollow, and there's like a Nazi base in the middle. That's what I've heard.
I think I should just come in there. I don't believe there's any empirical evidence to suggest that hypothesis is in any way accurate, but it's always fun to speculate.
I mean, there's movies about that. There's books about that. Like somebody's got this idea from somewhere, right? I don't know. It's ridiculous. But there's also a book called Rocket Ship Galileo, which was written in 1947, and that's where this sort of idea sprung from originally. So it's about these young boys. It was written sort of just after World War II, and it was about these young boys who created a rocket ship, and they wanted to fly to the moon. And when they got there, they found a base camp. They found like a base, and there are Nazis who had actually fled, who were living on the moon, and craziness ensues. The publishers weren't going to publish it at first because they thought flying to the moon was like too crazy an idea.
Wow.
But not as crazy as space Nazis, obviously.
No. The surface of the moon. So if I'm in my back garden, say, and I'm looking through my binoculars, it's a hell of a sight. You can see a lot through your binoculars, can't you? You don't really need a kind of, like a really expensive telescope.
No, absolutely. I mean, it's one of the things that makes the sort of the moon so great for amateur astronomy. It's any amateur astronomer, where to start? Look at the moon. It's easy to find in the sky. You don't even need binoculars to pick out decent detail. Just sit with your own just naked eye and just concentrate on the moon for a few minutes, and you'll be amazed how much detail you'll actually pick up. I should say it's generally better to look at the moon for sort of observational purposes when it's not full, because when it's a full moon it tends to get a bit whited out, but it's when you get down to the sort of to the waning gibbous or whatever, where you've got a bit of shadowing cast across the craters and the mountain ranges, it's where you really pick up the definition. But like you say, Simon, with a reasonable pair of binoculars, if you're spending £50, you'll pick up even more detail. If you spend £150 on some nice binoculars, you'd be amazed what you can see.
You could actually see Neil Armstrong's flag.
No, unfortunately, no. You wouldn't be able to see Neil Armstrong's flag with a pair of binoculars.
But what you can see, that moon has been battered, hasn't it?
It did. It has. Yes. I mean, really, what you see is the whole history of the solar system on the surface. When you think, because there's no atmosphere to speak of, and there's no active geology, when an event occurs, such as an asteroid collision, that crater pretty much is going to be there for the rest of the history of the solar system. There's a little bit of lunar dust will float around and fill in some minor details, but ultimately it will just be there. So there are objects that and things you see on the moon that have been there since not long after its formation, and there are also more recent impacts. I mean, one of the big ones, which only occurred about 100 million years ago, which in solar system sort of timescales isn't that long ago. I mean, the dinosaurs would have seen this occur. Would have been the formation of Tycho crater, which is probably, again, you've probably all seen it when you look up at the moon, even with your naked eye. There's a crater and a blast kind of shape that comes out from a crater at the bottom of the moon as you look at it from Earth, or certainly as you look at it from the northern hemisphere of Earth. And that crater, I think it's something like 80, 90 kilometers across. It's huge.
Wow.
It's 5 kilometers deep. And if you imagine what sort of size or chunk of asteroid has to hit an object to make a crater 85 kilometers across, that would have been a colossal thing to have seen. But even that pales into absolute insignificance compared to the biggest known impact crater on the moon. And that is the South Pole Aitken Basin, which is 2,500 kilometers across. Now, we haven't really talked about the whole size of the moon, but to put it into context, the moon itself is about 3,500 kilometers across, okay? 2,200 miles. Earth is about 12,800 kilometers
okay.
across. So the moon's about 1/4 the size of the Earth. So to imagine that you have an impact crater, and this is on the far side of the moon, you can't quite see it, but it covers pretty much the far side southern kind of hemisphere of the moon, this whole blast crater. I mean, it got kicked in the ass really, really hard. And I believe that whole blast area is essentially depressed in the moon, put a dent in it about 13 kilometers deep. So that would have been a colossal collision.
Did you guys hear about the new restaurant on the moon?
No.
Restaurant, what?
Oh, the food's excellent, but there's no atmosphere.
Oh, very good, very good. I mean, if I was to go to the moon right now, LP, in my t-shirt and shorts, as I am right now, and I kind of got there, opened my spaceship door, climbed down, got out, what would it be like?
Are you wearing? So you're not wearing a spacesuit?
Okay, this time there's no spacesuit.
No spacesuit.
No spacesuit.
Probably not ideal, Simon. The moon has no atmosphere. I mean, it has a few trace elements. To all intents and purposes, it is a vacuum, and that poses quite a large number of problems for you walking around in your shorts and flip. There's also
I have got flip flops on as well.
Well, yes, I mean, yes, they're probably not going to do a great deal to protect you from the harsh environment. So yeah, as we said, one of the first problems is there's no atmosphere. So if there's no atmosphere, liquids don't remain liquid for very long because there's no pressure to keep them in liquid form. So the first thing you would notice in the first few seconds is the saliva and any liquids that are kind of open to the environment, you'd feel boiling off your tongue because, again, they would just be instantly evaporating into space. Also, I would advise, if you did find yourself outside your spacecraft on the moon with no spacesuit on, breathe out really hard, really quickly, very much like divers do if they have to do an emergency ascent, because the pressure of your lungs and all the gas that's in them in that kind of zero pressure environment is going to expand massively. It's going to blow your chest open. So you want to breathe out as quickly as you can. And then you're kind of right. You've got a few seconds to think, I probably need to think about getting back inside my spacecraft. Now, another thing that will probably, and let's be honest, Simon, we are talking about life and death within not a long period of time, that will depend on whether you actually survive your brief excursion on the moon without your spacesuit on, would be the time of day or night that it is on the moon. Now, ideally, you've landed and it's probably about dawn because you thought, I'll get there and watch the sun come up over the moon's surface. And at dawn, actually, your temperature conditions might not be too bad. Because you've got to remember, at peak sort of midday on the moon, I mean, the temperature is up around 120, 130 degrees.
Oh, that's toasty.
Toasty. But then on the dark side of the moon, once everything's cooled down, it'll plummet to minus 173 degrees Celsius. So you're talking like liquid nitrogen kind of temperature. There's actually the LRO spacecraft, which is a modern orbiter that's going around the moon at the moment, has peered into some of the deep craters that sit kind of around the poles that never get any sunlight. And it's detected temperatures down to sort of minus 238. You're talking just a few degrees above absolute zero. But you don't want to be in the sunshine for very long because even though the heat might not be so bad in a short burst, we're talking 30 seconds here, the radiation dose you would get, because you've got no atmosphere, nothing shielding you, would be like getting 1,000 x-rays, like, you know, every few seconds. So if you were outside the spacecraft for any more than 2 or 30 seconds to a minute, you're probably going to end up developing cancer within the next sort of, 10 to 12 years. But to answer your question, most people think if the conditions were right, you could walk around on the moon for about 30 or 60 seconds to maybe 90 seconds if you could get your backside back into the spacecraft and actually probably survive it. So it wouldn't be an instant death, but you'd probably be thinking, I won't try that again, because it wouldn't have been a pleasant experience for you.
When you were talking about the breathing out, it made me think of the movie Sunshine. You know, when they go on to that, when it gets all weird at the end and they go into that other ship and then they get, I think the airlock like blows and they have to sort of like shoot themselves out into the other thing. He like wraps himself up with all the silver foil. It's like, breathe out, and it's this big thing. And I never really understood why. So today I've learned a thing, LP. Thank you very much.
So what I want to know is 90 seconds I've been stood on the moon. Like, what happens? Do I explode?
Well, if you were to remain on the moon?
Yeah.
Oh, well, yeah. Well, at that point, basically, hypoxia would be taking over. The oxygen level in your brain would be completely depleted, so you would start to fall unconscious. Again, then the pressure difference between the outside of your body, inside of your body, your blood vessels, although initially sealed, they would start to break down, and the blood would start to boil, and yeah, you would just end up
Explode.
Yeah.
Yes.
It wouldn't be like a dynamite explosion. It would just be excreting liquids and things and bubbling. And
Oh, that's pleasant.
it wouldn't be a nice way to go. I wouldn't have thought.
So I'm on the moon. What can I smell?
What can you smell?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the first thing, if you're outside the craft, there's no atmosphere, so there's no air to go in your nose, so you wouldn't really smell anything. But if you were to sort of take a sample of the surface, the dust, I believe the Apollo astronauts have mentioned it smelled like burnt gunpowder, a very metallic kind of acrid kind of smell to it. It's probably to do with the fact it's heavy in iron, and it's essentially been created by huge impacts. So it's just bits of burnt, vaporized rock, I suppose. So yes, gunpowder is what they report.
What can you hear on the moon then?
What can you hear on the moon? Well, as Ridley Scott's space epic Alien would suggest, in space no one can hear you scream. Although the moon, is not in space, you're on the moon. Again, we come back to this idea of a vacuum. If you have no air, then you have no way for sound waves to travel, so you have no sound.
So is it true that the full moon makes people crazy then?
Oh, is it that the full moon makes it crazy? I think there's a lot of, again, I think everybody's aware one of the reasons the tides go up and down is because of the moon and the gravitational force of the moon. And also biologists have now pretty much proven beyond all reasonable doubt that the cycle of the moon also affects fertility levels in humans. It causes potentially coral reefs to go through their fertility cycles. There's direct correlation between the moon cycle and biology here on Earth. So it has become integral to how life works as well.
You could use the full moon as a valid defense. In the 18th century, if you committed a crime, you could campaign for a lighter sentence on the grounds of lunacy, because you'd committed that crime in the full moon.
Lunacy under the full moon.
Yeah, it was a valid defense.
Oh, that's where that word came from.
There's going to be a blue moon in October.
Blue moon.
Blue moon.
What is a blue moon?
A blue moon is if you have a month where you get 2 full moons in the same calendar month.
Ooh.
And spooky, this year's blue moon is on the 31st of October.
This is the year then, isn't it?
This is
when
the
all the wolves are going to come out.
Oh!
So finally, guys, what I'd like to talk about is the future of the moon. Are we going to go back to the moon? Are we going to experiment?
Currently NASA have a program. It's Artemis, I believe, Apollo's sister. So there's your mythological connection. But yeah, NASA's currently they've allocated $35 billion to get back to, and they want to. Basically, they're saying they want to be landing on the moon in just a few short years. The plan at the moment is to create a gateway about 2022, where what they want to do is they want to send up an orbiter, like an orbital station, really, which can have supplies sent to it. And then when manned flights take off a couple of years later, they can then dock with this gateway, pick up the supplies they need, and then land on the surface. There'll be several of these kind of quick visits where they land, they set up a little bit of a moon base, get some bits prepared down there, put some oxygen tanks down there, start looking at the things they'll need to survive in the long term. Then they'll return to Earth. And then hopefully by about the year 2028, they want to establish a permanent colony where there will always be somebody living on the moon.
Man on the moon!
Man on the moon!
Wow.
So yeah. And the real purpose for establishing a moon base? Well, I mean, it's twofold. That, you know, at the moment, all of humanity lives on one chunk of rock, so it only takes one mass extinction event, like a large, I don't know, natural event, like a huge asteroid hit, type that wiped out the dinosaurs, or even a man-made event like a thermonuclear war or the climate emergency. You know, these things could eradicate our entire species. But more importantly, it can act as a staging post to go out to other parts of the solar system, primarily Mars, and then maybe even further. The moon only has 1/6 the Earth's gravity, so it's much easier to blast off from the moon than it is from Earth. So if you send all the little bits to the moon, or you can build the bits you need on the moon to create a spacecraft that can then be blasted off to somewhere like Mars, it makes perfect sense to do so. And the one thing that they found relatively recently on the moon, in quite large abundance it appears, is water ice tied up in the rock and stuff. Now, if you can extract water ice, you can get hydrogen out of it. You've got hydrogen, you can make rocket fuel, and if you make rocket fuel, well, you can blast off to wherever you want to go. So that's probably the what NASA are currently looking at doing.
So it's a bit like Dubai when you go into Australia.
A bit like Dubai, or big shiny skyscrapers.
Just kind of fly there first.
Yes.
Get your next leg done.
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah, it would be like a stopover airport on your departure to Mars. But of course, once you've got that base, you can also begin to experiment with, or say experiment, or conduct experiments, learn how humans could exist in low gravity situations for long periods of time. Probably a lot of the moon base that they want to establish, you want to be under the ground, really. I think that you want to sort of dig down. Because there is no atmosphere and there's no real magnetic field that's exerted from the moon of any real description, you get bombarded by all these nasty, highly charged particles from the sun in deep space. So you want to kind of get yourself deep down. And if you're going to come up on the surface with your spacesuit on, ideally, Simon, you're only going to be wanting to do that for a few hours at a time. You don't want to be out all the time. Really.
You're not selling it to me. I've got to say.
Again, it proves how lucky we are to have planet Earth. I mean, this absolute paradise that we have. You know, we've evolved and coexisted with other creatures and with our planet, and we should look after it. There was one other thing I wanted to touch on as well when we talk about NASA's $35 billion budget to go to the moon. Now, it sounds like quite a lot of money, but really, to all intents and purposes, it's a tiny amount of money to do what they want to achieve, and they're going to have to kind of really, you know, invent some really good technology and deliver that technology sort of really economically to be able to achieve all this. And it kind of makes me a little bit sad that compared to like the US defense budget, which is in the trillions of dollars, you know, they could have, if we were to spend the money that we spend on blowing each other up on actual sort of space travel, we would have colonized the entire solar system by now. You know, it probably give us 50 years, we'd be looking at kind of, you know, interstellar travel to other stars. But for some reason, we're a species at the moment that still is very young and likes to blow itself up. But maybe we'll work past that one day.
LP, what would Earth be like if we didn't have a moon?
What would Earth be like if we didn't have a moon? I don't know. It's a very interesting question. I think we mentioned a little while ago that you know, we know that human fertility and biological cycles are related to the moon, as is a lot of the animal kingdom.
Tides.
Yeah. Again, would they just be sucked towards the sun? Would that change the whole way that the ocean currents would work? I think you'd end up with quite a different looking planet Earth if you didn't have a moon.
So would humans exist if there was no moon?
Hard to say, Simon. So you're talking, if you're removing the moon from 4.5 billion years ago, ever being there, then the whole of evolution and life could have happened differently. So there could be reptoid men or no sentient beings at all on planet Earth. It would be like a, you know, really difficult to know what effect.
Maybe we'd have way better night vision because there'd be no moon, so we would like have to adjust better at night.
Yeah. What's a rectal man?
A reptoid man, you know, like a reptilian.
Oh, okay.
You know? So, like, as you have humanoids, you have like basically a two-legged, armed reptilian type of creature. So
thank you, Moon, for allowing us to exist, I guess.
yeah.
Cheers, Moon.
Well, I'm feeling a bit mooned out now, but that was fun, fascinating stuff. Really interesting stuff. Thanks, LP.
No problem.
Thanks, Christelle.
You're very welcome.
And it'd be nice to just let everyone know right now that we're on Twitter, and our handle on Twitter is @WANS2001. That's WANS 2001. So yeah, give us a follow or a like, and we'll do the same back. So one more joke before we finish about the moon. Did you hear about the bones they found on the moon?
No, I did not hear about this.
It seems like the cow did not make it.
That doesn't even warrant a laugh. Sorry, so.
I know, it's kind of a joke, isn't it? It's just, yeah. Some great jokes today, some great facts. Thanks, guys. And until next time, we'll say goodbye.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.